meeting is being recorded.
Oh, I should probably stand over. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anaí Ruiz Beltran, and I'm the Diversity Inclusion Specialist for the Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. Thank you all for joining us at joining the EDI office and also the Fermi Lab Asian Pacific Association, also known as FAPA, for the Inclusion Matters event in honor of Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And today we have Yulin, physicist at Argonne, presenting Chinese calligraphy, an exploration of its visual aesthetics and its cultural relevance. Thank you for joining us today. After the presentation, we do have refreshments outside of Korea too, and I hope to see you all there. Now I'll pass over the microphone to Suteshta.
Thank you, Anai. Good morning, everyone. So welcome again to the celebration of Asian Pacific Heritage Month. So we're going to hear from Yulin Li on Chinese calligraphy, an exploration of its visual aesthetics and cultural relevance. So Dr. Li is a staff physicist at Argonne National Laboratory. He has worked in diverse fields, including laser applications in accelerators, X-ray lasers and free electron physics, laser pulse shaping, and ultrafast dynamics in materials. He has authored over 100 publications in peer-reviewed journals, and in his spare time, he practices, teaches, and studies Chinese calligraphy. Additionally, he has published more than 20 research journal papers on the history and aesthetics of Chinese calligraphy. And currently, he serves as the president of Seven Seas Institution of Chinese Calligraphy, which is a nonprofit member-supported organization dedicated to the promotion and education of Chinese calligraphy in America. Yulin, thanks so much for taking your time to talk to us today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Yulin Li.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
There we go. So do I need to repeat what I've just said, or you already got it? So the basic idea is that to talk about calligraphy in English is a challenge for me. Okay, so I will try to get my ideas through, and what I'm going to try to get through is what Chinese calligraphy is and what's a relationship of Chinese calligraphy to in Western art. Okay, so no, it's not. It's refused to advance. What do I do? Oh, it's not really advancing. Okay, now. Okay, so this is a picture taken by somebody, which I got from a website, which shows an old man, probably a retired worker, using a water brush of some sort, writing on the street. Okay, use water. Okay, so he's quite in a mood that he's enjoying the process of writing. And there's two onlookers, young mothers with their toddlers, right? So if we look at this picture, one important thing to notice is that whatever he wrote in there will disappear after evaporation. So what he's enjoying is only the process of writing, right? So that's a common thing for many of those Chinese people, probably also in the Chinese-speaking circle, okay? So Here's a very similar picture, but it's showing a true artist. Okay, so he's writing with real ink, real paper, and the work he finished is supposed to pass on as a piece of art. And the artist is my personal friend, and this is at the celebration of his opening of his private studio. And you see a lot of works hanging in the back wall, and somewhere probably over there is mine as a gift of his opening of his some sort of housewarming gift. Okay, you can see this picture is taken very, very casual. Everyone is using probably a cell phone, and part of the lens is even covered. What's striking is here, you can see the posture of the artist, right? He's very deliberate, and all the onlookers that having their phone out and taking pictures, taking videos. So everyone is enjoying that scene, enjoying that activity. So the question is, in the era of ChatGPT, why people are still enjoying this very traditional writing in Chinese, right? That's the question, okay? So on the other hand, we can see Chinese calligraphy is really an art. Okay, this shows an ancient piece passed to us probably before this, created about 1,000 years ago, and it's auctioned back in 2010 when I was in Shanghai, and that night my friend was very excited. It's basically marked a new era for Chinese art. And it's auctioned at the price of something like $60 million. Okay, so and the plus in today's the money is something around $70 million. Okay, so in comparison, okay, the most expensive auctioned piece that's attributed to Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, was this piece. It's auctioned back in 2017, and it's the price was $450 million. So it's only 7 times more than the other piece. Okay, so another comparison that's very interesting, okay, is that the most expensive writing that's ever auctioned is also from Da Vinci. That's the famous Leicester Codex. It's auctioned at the price something like $70 million too. So in comparison, if you make this cross comparison, you can see calligraphy as an art is very, very valuable too, and it's enjoyed by people. Okay. So the question again I'm going to post is why? Why just writing can be such a valuable art? Okay. So one thing that's my answering here, I'm trying to prove this in my following the rest of the presentation is the precondition for writing to become an art is actually it has to possess certain visual complexity, right? The first one. The second one, it has to be a writing. A writing means it's basically it has to be linear strokes. It doesn't matter whatever you write. Yeah. In English, in Chinese, it has to be linear. But one more condition is that you need a proper tool to make those strokes expressive, right? If you just write with a pencil, it can be expressive, but you have less variation in the appearance of these strokes. Okay, so we're talking about, right? So now if we look at this, the first, those one in Chinese is basically a very famous poem from one of the greatest poets in Chinese history, that's Li Bai, okay? So you don't have to be able to read it. So I asked ChatGPT to translate this into English. So that's the translation. So now if you just compare the visual form, you can see the Chinese is already a lot more complicated. But at the same time, it's also more regulated, right? So for the English writing, you can see it's just alphabet repeating itself. But in the Chinese version, you can see there's no repetition of any character. It's just keep keep changing, right? Okay, so that actually goes back to the history. Okay, so as we know that all the writing are recording of our language in a visual form, right? That's a fact. Okay, and all writings, it doesn't matter where it develops. It starts as simple pictures, right? So, and here are the three examples, all the four independently developed writing system in this world. We can see the Sumerian cuneiform writing that's dated back about 5,000 years ago. Then the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and that dates back roughly the same like this Chinese piece of oracle bone. Okay, and we have the Mayan tablet, which is about 1000 AD. So these are all in some sort of picture, right? But don't get confused. Even they shows up as picture, they are only representing the sounds of the languages they're speaking. Okay, so that has been the biggest puzzle for the people to decipher. For example, the Egyptian hieroglyphs. So originally thought all those pictures, you see the bird, you see the boat, people in there, they thought it might represent some idea. But at the time, at about 1700, when Napoleon's troops found the Rosetta Stone, which has the Greek and Coptic writing and the hieroglyph writing in there for the same content, then people suddenly realize all these writing, even though they are very complicated, they represent only the sound of or only the pronunciation. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. So this is basically a comparison between Chinese and Egyptian hieroglyphs. Okay, so we are going to concentrate on the first row. Okay, you don't have to read this, you just follow me. Okay, so I can't read the Egyptian part neither. Okay, for the Chinese part, and then you just follow me. Okay, okay. So what you see on the right hand side is Egyptian hieroglyph. On the right hand side, that's modern Chinese. I use modern Chinese as example because actually Chinese writing has not been changed by a lot for the existence of 3,000 years. Okay, so if you just concentrate on the first line, which is the word, you can see the writing has an eagle in there and something like a hand, then end up with a duck. And if you just look at this word, if you think it's about the idea of the writing, it's very confusing. You don't know what it is, right? Okay, but in reality, only the last image there, which is a logograph of this word, which is a duck. And that means that it carries the meaning of this word, which is duck. And the other component in there, the eagle, the hand, the rectangle, is just the pronunciation. Okay, that's counterintuitive, but that's the case. Okay. So if you look at it, then that actually that word, as it's written or drawn there, it creates three layers of conflict. The first one, what you see, is not what it means. That's the first one. The second one is the pronunciation conflict. So the duck image has in here does not have a sound. It's silent. Okay, what you're pronouncing or you're reading at the front part, which has nothing to do with the duck. Okay, so the third layer is, of course, caused by this pronunciation and visual conflict, which is a mental conflict. So at this point, this language, this writing has to change, right? Either you start over or you just get rid of these images. And the last one is what happens actually for all other language. You represent all these images that only represent the pronunciation using alphabetics. So that's how all the other language evolves. Okay. After that, then you can see you don't have the visual conflict anymore. Okay. The mental conflict gradually, as you get used to the language, then it's fine, right? So Now let's talk about the Chinese part, okay? So it's written as the first one. You can dissect it into two components, the right one and the left one. The right one actually is a logograph. It's the meaning of this word, okay? But that's one single character, remember that, okay? So the right part, which is this square with some cross going through, that's the pronunciation of this word, which pronounces by itself as jia, okay? But the whole word means the same thing, duck, okay? So, and the whole word, the pronunciation is ya, so it's very similar to the ya. And now you can see this writing system even carries the same principle like the Egyptian writing, okay? It's composed of the pronunciation and the image, but it is resolved those conflicts. What you see is a duck, right? One character with the meaning and with the pronunciation. And what you pronounce is a duck, which in Chinese, of course, it's not duck, it's ya, okay? If a writing goes at this level of sophistication, it doesn't need to further even change. So basically, there's no conflict in there. You have visual confirmation, you have the pronunciation confirmation, and mentally you recognize this. You can combine those two, and there's no conflict. So that's why the Chinese system propagates for so long and has never changed. Okay, so just give you some more example in here. Everybody recognize this one as the periodical table, right? So in the history, we know that whenever we find a new element, what we do? We create a new word, right? We do the same thing in Chinese, but in Chinese, the creation is more systematic. Okay, so we know all those elements we found. We categorize them into three types: metal, non-metal, and the gas, right? So if you see what I highlighted in there, for all the metals, it has that character in there on the left-hand side. That basically means gold, and means all these things have that part in there is a metal. Okay, so all the metals have that character as the meaning part. Okay, so at the same time, if you look at those non-metal parts, right, they all have this character, which means rock, stone. So it's non-conductor, right? And for those gaseous elements, then you have that element in there, which in Chinese means gas. Okay, so to complete the construction of this new word, you just add the proper sound in there. I will just give you one example, like for helium, right? So we just add that small character within the gas, and the small character pronounces as high. Okay, now you know Chinese pronunciation of helium is high. It's very close to helium. Okay, so for the other word, you can also find that the same principle. Okay. With this principle, you can basically create as many as characters you want with new meaning. But for those calligrapher lovers, most important fact is this writing system preserves the visual complexity of this writing. Okay, so you can see all these words, they have their own structure and their own meaning and their own pronunciation. Unlike those English words, it can be, when you're just reading on, for example, if you read ytterbium, you don't know it's a metal or it's a non-metal or it's a gas. You don't know it, right? But in Chinese, if you just see the word ytterbium, have that that meaning part in there, you know it's a metal. Okay. So, yeah, feel free to interrupt if you have any question. Okay. So now we talked about the two parts already. So Chinese writing is inherently very complex. Okay, it has a visual complexity, and it's a writing. Okay, so the last part coming into this play is the tool we use for writing those characters that makes Chinese calligraphy possible. So that's a brush. Okay, so this kind of brush, we found the first use was actually found roughly 2600 BCE, which is about 5,000 years ago, right? You see some people written with a soft brush like this, using cinnabar, right, as the medium, and writing on this clay pot of some sort. Okay. So, and this example was actually found in a tomb from the Warring States, which is about 500 BCE, and it's also about 2,500 years ago. Okay, and here are the brushes in my own collection. So I use them not all of them every day, but I use most of them. Okay, so you can see those brushes. They are of different shape, different size, etc. It's worth to note that all these brushes we use for calligraphy is the same brush used by the artist for painting, okay, in Chinese. Okay, so you can see, if you use this type of brush, you can be very creative. When you move those brushes around with different forces, it can create very complex visual image. Okay. Okay, here we go a little bit boring in here. So this picture is basically shows, yeah, shows it's a piece that's attributed to a great calligrapher back in Yuan Dynasty. It's basically about 1300 AD. Okay, so what it shows is an essay. That the title of that essay is 1,000 character essay. Okay, with 6 different scripts. It's basically the same content repeated with 6 different script styles. Okay, so the rightmost one is those engraving or inscription you found on those bronzeware back in the Song Dynasty about 3,000 years ago. So the second from the right one, that's the seal script, which is basically implemented during the ruling period of the first emperor of China. Okay, so that's Qin Shi Huang. Okay, the Qin Dynasty, about 221 BCE. He's the first one to unite China. Okay, and the third one is the so-called clergic script, which is dominantly used during the Han Dynasty, which was also about 2,000 years ago, right after the Qin Dynasty. So the fourth and the last one, those are the running script, and the second one from the left is what we call the regular script, and that's the one I'm going to focusing on. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's related, yeah. But when we call seal, it's basically most the common use for them for now is just creating those seals. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. No, they pronounce basically the same. There is some change. There is some changing. Actually, over time, we get rid of some of the complex pronunciation for those words. Yeah, all these ones, they are single character, single syllable. Okay. So. Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. This one is more historical. It's more historical, but people are still using those different scripts to write right now as art piece. But yeah, I will get into that a little bit more. Okay, so here, so let's fast forward about 1,000 years. So, okay, go ahead. Previous slide. Mm-hmm. More sort of. Yes, those are cursive. Yes.
Can you talk about?
Okay, a very good question. Very good question. So it's difficult to skip anything with this audience. Looks like. Okay. So basically, the cursive is created as a shorthand for the government worker about 2,000 years ago. So at that time, that's Han Dynasty. So basically, there's a lot of paperwork like modern days. So all those workers, their focus is just creating and copying documents. And sometimes if you have a lawsuit, right? So you need to record those proceedings like nowadays. So you need to be able to write fast enough to keep up with what people are talking about. So that's why they developed this system, and it's very different from the regular script. But you can see both the two cursives, they are very similar. The first one we call the ancient cursive, and what you're seeing here are the similar parts. You actually don't see the different part. Okay, so the leftmost one is what we call the modern cursive. Okay, very good question. Okay. You have one. Okay. What direction? Another good question. Okay, I can't skip anything. So normally, if you read it, it's from top to bottom for each line, right? From top to bottom, and as you go, then you go from right to left. So, but in here it doesn't matter. So because that's a different script. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so finally I get move on. So that's fast forward about 1,000 years into Tang Dynasty, where it's a heyday of the regular script. Okay, and the regular script is one of the first, not the first, one of the very important achievements in calligraphy development. What I call this one is regular script, a personified human image. So why do I call it like that? So you just think about those government workers. They have to write every day. So what fun do they have? No fun, right? The only fun they can have is just to write those characters creatively and inject their personal feeling and their personal conception about this world in a sort of abstractive image. Okay, so if you look at those three, probably everybody can tell they are very different in style. Even they are all called the regular script. Okay, I will just give you my impression when I look at those pieces. So the one on the left is actually the Ouyang Xun. Okay, so he's one of the greatest master. He actually constructed all the rules about how you construct each character. Okay, so if you look at those images and you try to think about a person, who do you think about? Right, a professor, right? Professor Xavier, right? A very self-controlled, very smart, and with some graceful too, right? The second one, which is his contemporary, but younger by about 30 years, and this is very, very different. You can see each stroke has a lot of curvature to going on, and it's like a complete different person. So if I'm going to describe this one as a person, it has to be a female, right? And just to give a name, it's probably a Catwoman, played by Scarlett Johansson, for example. But you can have your own take, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so. And for this one, this is the latest from all the pieces. Then you can see someone that's strong, right? And very, very rough in the style, okay? But the basic principle in here is every character they create is a mimic of human image in a certain way, in a very abstractive way. Okay, so and this is not my invention of the theory. Okay, actually, one of the greatest calligraphers, Su Shi. If some of you probably have heard about him. So he's the one of the smartest guy too. So that's what he described about calligraphy. In Chinese, what he said, 书必有神气骨血肉，无者却一不成书也. So the translation again is from ChatGPT. Okay. So writing must have spirit, vitality, bones, blood, and flesh. If any of these 5 elements is missing, it cannot be considered as complete writing. Okay. So that's how I and the ancient masters interpret those characters. You don't need to be able to read all of them, but you can feel this type of visual power. Okay, and at this point, all these pieces are still those characters. They are static. Okay, mostly static. Okay, that's important. Okay, so. At this time, I would like to introduce one of the way how people enjoy those kind of writing. You probably, but nobody asked the question why the characters are white and the background is black. No. Okay. Okay. So the reason is that because those are work that's inscribed on a piece of rock, on a stela. Okay, so basically the writing is engraved into the rock, and when you try to make a copy of this writing, then you have a piece of paper covered in the stone, and use some soft hammer to hammer those characters into the rock where the characters was engraved. Then you use ink to rubber, then the character is now is white and the background is black. Okay, so to enjoy this, of course, you can't move this stone to your home, right? So after you make that rubbing, then you cut them up and put them into a form like a book, so you can hold it and enjoy it in your private circumstance, right? So, yes. Very important. Yeah, very good question. Okay, so basically, if we're talking about those stelas, they are monuments. They are commemorative of certain things occurred at that time. And in particular, for those pieces in here, the left 2 pieces are commissioned by the emperor. Okay. So that's why they have been carried out, executed very, very carefully. Okay. That also means the artist created those ones. They are the top of the group. Okay. So, but to go into detail about each piece, it can take a lot of time. And so, this is the first form of mounting this type of artwork. Okay, so then as you can see, those characters, they are very static, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so and those work are commissioned for something that's very serious. That's commemorating something that's important in history. But they are, as you can imagine, that writing are not every day only for those monuments. People use writing every day to communicate with each other, right? That's one of the finest example from Chinese history. So this type of writing is related to the regular script, but we call running script. The basis is the same. It's just the writing style is slightly different. And what we can see here is a traced copy of a letter by Wang Xizhi. Wang Xizhi is a very important figure in Chinese history, and his time is about 300 AD, and he is a master of master and the god of calligraphy. Okay, if you forgot about anything, that's one thing you need to remember. Okay, so this is a private letter he's written to probably one of his friends. If you just look at this visually without understanding of the word or anything, so from right to left, that's how the time sequence that's going, right? So on the rightmost, you can see the character more or less better controlled, very close to the regular script. But as time goes by, it becomes rougher and rougher, and it's no longer as regular at the beginning. And that has to do with the content. The content is a letter. Basically, he's complaining to his friend that his ancestors' tomb got destroyed by some people. Okay, so he's getting more and more anguished, more and more saddened as he's writing this piece. So what we can see is his mental state is changing. From the very calm style, in the end, it becomes rather unstable. So when people get emotional, you get something like this. Yeah, everybody knows that, right? Okay. This still is somehow quite recognizable, each character, right? So then we go into the cursive writing. Okay, so this is actually not a normal cursive writing, and this is fast forward again back to Tang. It's at that time, Tang Dynasty. It's at that time people developed this style of cursive writing, which actually we call it as crazy cursive. Crazy cursive. Okay, so what you can see here, just by impression, you cannot tell the individual character anymore, right? You cannot tell. What you can see is just the running lines created by the brush in a rapid rhythm, right? So I call this one the abstractive expression in a time series. So you still read it from right to the left, top down. And if you know a little bit about Chinese, you can basically decode how this piece is created, okay, how the brush is moving. And if you have enough sympathy, you can probably also understand what he's thinking while he's writing this piece. So that's one of another beauty of Chinese calligraphy, okay? So basically, it's a set of abstractive image in time series very strictly. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Are those red? Oh, good question. Those are red stamps. They are from the collectors after him. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like somebody's writing on the wall of the White House, say I'm here with the name. Okay. But of course, you can think about this to be able to get those pieces, you must have a certain social status. You must have enough money to get these pieces. It's not as easy as getting into the White House. Are you able to read that? Yeah, those are standard seal script, so you can decode them reasonably easily. Or you mean the content of this one? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can try. No, what you can do is just ask the audience, does they Oh, okay, that's much better. That's much better. Still the audio effect? Okay, good. So basically what you can see here is the last one. The delightful and astonishing aspects of these scenes are all embodied in his writing. So this is what his contemporary described what his writing is. Okay, so it's very powerful and sometimes can be very, very emotional. Okay, but you can see the stark contrast between this and the regular script. So basically, without explicitly mentioning it, I'm already introducing you to two different schools of writing these characters, right? Okay, so now I'm going to introduce in second mounting form of this. So that's when the artist written his work on a piece of paper, how I'm going to enjoy it. That's just the recapitulator of the previous slides. You can see this piece is actually quite long, 180 centimeters long, and you mount it into a scroll, which you have a piece of rod in the center. You just roll it around to keep it. Then when you want to enjoy it, you just roll it section by section. Okay. So one of the important thing about those regular scripts is that they are for serious purpose, right? And there's one thing, a technology interruption occurs to it. Can someone mention what that technology is? Think about the purpose of the regular script. They are used to copy books, documents. So the most important technology that interrupts that is printing, yes. So in printing, you still have someone to write those scripts on a piece of wood, for example, and people engrave it. Then you print the books from those blocks. And now everybody gets a chance to see all these regular scripts. And you are actually immersed in this world when you read a book. In the end, what happens? You get bored by those regular scripts, right? So it's no longer the pristine art form, artistic form of calligraphy. Then people want to create their own artistic piece. What do? They stay away from those regular scripts. And fast forward by another roughly 1,000 years, that's to the end of Ming Dynasty. That's where when those people becomes more and more creative about their writing. And each of those pieces created as an individual art piece. It's meant to be enjoyed. It has no practical function. Okay, it's just meant to be enjoyed as a piece of art for collection. Okay, so what's important here, I want first to introduce you, that's the third mounting form of these pieces. What you can see here is actually how the right side piece is mounted on the wall. Okay, so what you see here is the so-called, yeah, yes, please. Push this. Okay, push this. Okay. Okay, so this piece is basically hanging on here, and this mounting method is called the hanging scroll. Okay, so you have a rod at the bottom, then you have another rod much thinner with strings you can attach to a nail on the wall. Okay, what's important for all these pieces? Visually, you can see it's far from the regular script. It's not as crazy as those crazy cursive, but you're already quite crazy. Okay, the most astonishing effect for this one, those are giant. You see this one is 3.5 meters tall, and this one is again 3.5 meters tall. This one is a little shorter. It's 2, and yeah, it's 2 2 meters, 35 centimeters tall, right? That's already very giant, and you probably don't have enough space to hang it over here after it's mounted. Okay, so okay. So visually, now if I just take some of the zoom in of those pieces, you can see individual characters. They are all broken. There's no more structure. You can tell which character is which character. Of course, I can tell, partially sometimes, but you can see what the artist is trying to express in here is something that's already very, very different from the regular script. So individually, if we just dig out one of the character, like this one, this is one character, okay? It already doesn't possess any of the harmonies you saw in those old regular scripts. So what the artist is trying to express, they are still using those characters or their carrier of their expression, their idea of and their conception of the word, but they use it in a completely different way, okay? So you can see this piece, and this piece, they're basically the same, okay? So, let's move on, fast forward to modern days. That this is a piece created by a Japanese artist, and his name is Inoue, okay? And this is a character, a Chinese character. If you don't know that's Chinese, what you can see here, it's just a very abstractive structure. If you don't know Chinese, this is not Chinese. I can tell it's Chinese because I know it's Chinese, right? So it's very, very abstractive. So what the author or the artist is trying to express, we don't know. But you can see there's a lot of details in there, and a lot of very expressive brushwork inside there. And it's very, very far away from what we call the traditional calligraphy, okay? And this piece is on the same mean. All the characters are broken out, and there's no way you can trace which character is which character unless you know Chinese, right? So what we call this one is just expression with no style anymore, okay? So what they're trying to express is just what their internal mental state. They're just using Chinese character as a carrier. Okay, go ahead.
So to get back to your point about printing, my first question was, how long did this art survive after artists would create their, like, it's a form of self-expression versus just creating literature?
That's correct. The printing technology developed in late Tang Dynasty in China, so it's more than 1,000 years. Okay, it's more than 1,200 years ago. So yeah, but is that expression of a feeling? That's a character, it's a Chinese character. Yeah, this character is the character dream, Meng. It's a dream. The word dream. Yeah, it's all there. Yeah, it's in here. Yeah. So. Okay, so the question is very good. What he's trying to express. Okay, so I think even the artist himself probably didn't know by the time. I think it's just a reflection of his instantaneous mental status, or he just wants to create something that's fun for people to look at. Whenever an art piece is out there, it's up to interpretation by anyone, right? So whatever you feel, there's no right or wrong, right? Okay. So, if I want to draw a parallel between what I've just talked about with the Western art. What you can see, there's some parallels in there, right? In the Chinese writing, you start with something very well controlled, very fine, then into something becomes vague and something completely distorted, right? And in between, around here, is where the printing technology is invented, developed. And if you look at the Western art, so the most famous is this one. It doesn't need any introduction, right? That's back in about 1500. And then if you look at Matisse, this woman doesn't look like a real woman anymore. The artist is only interested to express what he feels that woman should look like, okay? If you fast forward another 30 years to Picasso, he's not even interested in how the woman looks like. He's only interested on how to composite this picture, right? He dissected that the image he received in his eye, in his brain, and put those parts at rather random places. Even you can still recognize this as a woman, but you know, such a woman doesn't exist in this world anymore, okay? And in between here, this is where the photographer technology developed. So if you draw a parallel, so that's very important in here because you cannot compete using this style with a camera. You just cannot do it anymore. So you have to do something very creative in order to get the art to go on. So that's basically the parallel you can see, right? Okay, so let's go back to one interesting question I didn't ask. So with alphabetic writing, what can you do? So that's the best example I can find on the internet. It's, as you can see, that's not writing. That's a painting, right? That's graffiti in New York City on a subway train. So created probably by this guy. And I cannot read what it is. It's very, very expressive, and it's very beautiful to look at. And it's also very intriguing, but it just doesn't have that quality you can get from the Chinese calligraphy because you cannot reconstruct how this piece is created. There's no way. You don't know where he starts. He might start from here, and then paint everything layer by layer, but there's nothing certain. Okay, so that doesn't mean this is not a good piece of art. It's very nice. I like it very much. Actually, I purchased a book on graffiti for my daughter when she lived in New York. So that's where the graffiti starts. Okay, another parallel I like to draw is this. Everybody probably know more or less about this battery. It looks like it's out on here, so it's fine. There's a art motion in American history. It's called abstractive expressionism. So probably everybody heard about this. And the most famous artist from that period is Jackson Pollock. Okay, so this is one of his early paintings, which is commissioned by Peggy Guggenheim, the lady created the Guggenheim Museum in New York. And this work is rather giant in comparison with the working figure in front of it, you can see. Okay. He later donated this one to Iowa University. So, and we can see this is a very random expression of whatever is going on in this artist's mind. And his interpretation is down there, a stampede of every animal in the American West. Cows and horses and antelopes and buffaloes, everything is charging across the goddamn surface. Okay, that's the description he wants to give. But if you want to feel it, you see a lot of common elements in comparison with those Chinese calligraphy. Yeah, as long as you don't want to understand what Chinese calligraphy is writing the content, they're visually very similar in comparison with that crazy cursive writing, right? Except this in color, the other one is black and white. Okay, so the next one is actually even more interesting. If I cover all the text in here, nobody is going to tell me, able to tell me if that's the writing in Chinese or not, right? It's just some random structure, but it's one of the important pieces by this American abstractive expressionist Franz Klein. So that's all you. Okay. Oh yeah, it's just flipped down, so it's not out of battery. So sorry. Okay. So what he created this rather random structure, which doesn't look like anything, but it looks like it's a kind of he's trying to express something we don't know, right? You can interpret it in any way, but the title of this image may not help at all. It's called Mahoney, which is a county in, I think it's in Mississippi, which is a home county of the artist. What are supposed to learn about that county from this image? The tax rate, maybe. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of parallel, and all those pictures is trying to appeal to our mental, our brain. Okay, so this is basically the summary of, well, what I like to say. So in general, what is art, right? So then what is calligraphy as art, okay? So I found this definition of art online. This is the source, okay? So the art is expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty and emotional power. Okay, that's the important thing. Okay, what we notice is that visual form and beauty and emotion power. Okay, so for calligraphy as art, I can just modify this one. This time I didn't use ChatGPT. Okay, so the expression or application of creative skill and imagination in a visual form of writing. Okay, appreciated primarily for their beauty and emotional power. So I think that's what calligraphy, in essence, that's what a calligraphy is. Okay. So the last slide is the final summary of what I have talked. So calligraphy, it stems from the visual complexity of Chinese writing and fully exploiting the expression power of the soft brush, okay? And it's very similar to the Western art, trying to appeal to the evolution root of human psychology through visual conception. So that's my summary, okay?
So what do you see as the future of calligraphy? Modern technology is creating as long as we stay human?
It's a great question, huh? So we know that AI is taking the artist world, right? So many people are going to lose jobs. Okay. So, but if you just enjoy the art, okay, that has no impact on you, right? So the same as calligraphy, but there's one more layer to it. You know, Chinese population is about 1.4 billion. Right? All those people are still using Chinese. They're still writing Chinese, mostly on computer now, but they're still, even that a tiny percentage of people are still writing, enjoying this art, I think it's going to go to continue as what we see, right? But maybe the AI eventually will get to the stage that they can create creative calligraphy pieces, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I just leave these details in here because so far I have not talked about the doubles in the detail, which means I didn't touch anything about technique in calligraphy. Okay, that will take years of training before you can control that soft brush to create all those images I showed you. Okay, so but in comparison, here is one of master calligraphy piece. And on the right-hand side is the detail of Jackson Pollock's Autumn. That's in, I think it's in Metropolitan, Metropolitan Museum of Art. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming and doing this presentation for our office, but also for FAPA. So thank you again. If we can give them another round of applause.
Thank you, thank you.
So right now, outside of Korea too, we do have some pastries and also tea that FAPA has contributed. You're more than welcome to stop by and grab some pastries and also tea. And it's hot and cold tea, right, Gemsa? Yes, hot and cold tea. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have my
Nice.
That's great. Beautiful presentation.